So each week, hi Mrs. Durley. Thanks for coming. You haven't missed a thing. Each week, I bike from Wainscott, with my wicker basket full of the books I've finished the week before, push the bike into the wooden bike rack, come inside, fill my books up again. So I've gone on to be a children's librarian. I've worked in the library at the Museum of Natural History. Books and reading have been a huge part of it. I was a children's librarian for 10 years, and it started here. So to have written a book and then circle all the way back, especially a book about being a homebody, and then to be able to circle all the way back to the place I first checked out a book is really thrilling. So thank you for coming, and I hope if you see someone you don't know, you'll introduce yourself to them, because chances are they're one of my relatives. Or an old friend. The title of the book is Homebird, and it's a collection of essays organized by season, because I was an elementary school teacher for so long. And a homebird, if you don't know it, is an English term. And I'll just read what I said in one of the essays and then begin. A homebird, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, is a person who likes to stay at home, a homebody. The American Heritage Dictionary defines a homebody as a person who doesn't like to go out or travel, and of course has no listing for homebird. Liking to stay home is very different from not liking to go out. We homebirds enjoy going out and traveling. It's just that we find special delight in the comfort, nourishment, and complexity of our lives here at home. And home for me now is 100 miles from here as the crow flies on Martha's Vineyard, but geologically very similar. So I have really not traveled far. And because this is a home audience, I admit I've chosen essays that are most connected to you. The first one is called Hunting Ducks. Can everyone hear? Do you want a chair, Lucy? Okay. Bird hunting, with all its rituals and rites, was at the center of our family life on the eastern end of Long Island. It absorbed my father like nothing else. From dawn on opening day in late November until the last January afternoon of the season, Dad hunted the brackish ponds and turned under potato fields, morning and evening, for goose, duck, pheasant, and woodcock. Duck hunting was Dad's favorite, and sometimes I was invited to go along. Those mornings, Dad shook me awake in the pitch dark, and we drove the 45 minutes to Hampton Bays in silence. The walk in our heavy boots on sagging boards to the blind at the head of the creek was precarious in places. But once I settled in on the wooden bench between my father and Shell, our quivering Springer Spaniel, I felt elated. We'd share a thermos of black coffee, and I'd always burn my tongue. As the morning light seeped into the marsh, all three of us scanned the purple sky for ducks. On one of these trips, when I was 9 or 10, I fired a shotgun for the first time. Dad had shown me how to aim his uncle's .410 at a scrub oak and pretend to pull back the trigger. But that morning he told me to take the safety off and shoot. I did. The unexpected violence of the recoil jammed my shoulder, and I almost dropped the precious gun. Tears ran down my cheeks. I didn't want Dad to think I was soft, but the truth was, I didn't want to wound or kill anything, not even a tree. During the hunting season, dinners waited until we heard Dad's honk and Shell's excited bark. They were home. Any birds bagged that day were carefully spread out in the back of the station wagon. Teal, mallards, and the occasional canvasback were admired, then carried by their necks to the kitchen porch, where they hung by their beaks on nails to season for a few days. Next, the gear was tended to. Decoys were put away or ready for the morning, and all guns were broken down, cleaned, and put back in the gun case. Dad usually hunted with a 16-gauge hammerlock that he liberated during the war, or a Belgian 12-gauge Frank Cott. By the time I was 7, I was adept at cleaning the insides of a barrel, applying the sweet-smelling oil, and wiping the wooden stocks with a soft chamois cloth. So Lucy, you're about to turn 7. You can learn this too. I never fired a shotgun again, but I earned the nickname Laura Sharp Eyes and a place in the blind because I often heard the whistle of wings or spotted a pair coming our way before any of my companions did. The landscape of eastern Long Island and the men who hunted and fished it are imprinted deep inside me. The first time I visited Martha's Vineyard in the winter and found myself in a cold blind on Tisbury Grape Pond waiting for the sun to rise, I felt right at home. The shivering dog beside me was now a yellow Labrador retriever, and the man I leaned against would become my husband. Mornings and evenings found us in Philip Spaulding's blind at the end of Tyus Cove. Jeff Mulder often came too. Instead of sharing a thermos of black coffee while we waited for a flight of ducks to notice our decoys, we'd open and eat oysters we had raked up. Frequently we came home empty-handed, but sometimes we held the soft neck feathers of a black duck or a mallard. We'd breast the birds and quickly saute the lean burgundy meat in butter. I'd serve them with the currant mustard sauce my mother made, a taste from childhood that recaptured the magic of those early dawns. That taste will never fail to thrill me. But during the 1980s, as our lives turned to having and raising children, our attitudes began to shift. While my husband and I still loved to eat the wild meat, there was no longer any thrill in killing an animal as it eased into a pond for shelter, calling out to other birds. One evening, as Whit squatted in the dunes near our house on James Pond in West Tisbury, staring up at the new moon, he realized he didn't need to carry a gun to watch the sunset. He walked home, cleaned his firearm, and hasn't used it since. Even Dad, who hunted up through his 70s, gradually lost his lust for the kill. He claimed it was because there were fewer birds and his eyes were going, but I'm not sure that was it. What I notice is I'm more and more attached to the living beauty of wild things, especially birds. Now when I hear shots from the pond shore below our house, I'm rooting for the ducks, hoping the hunters have missed their mark. While Shell quivered with excitement for the hunt, Pal, our current dog, a black lab golden mix, is terrified by the sound of gunfire. When hunters open fire, she cowers under our bed, shaking with fear. I miss the smell of gun oil and the intimacy of those dark, expectant mornings. Still, I'll trade the sharp scent of a clean kill, even with its promise of a succulent dinner, for the whistle of a black duck, landing undisturbed on a neighboring field in the cold